What are you doing?
Reading a book.
Why are you wearing a helmet?
Because I'm speed reading.
What's the book about?
Advanced gun building.
Is it any good?
Well, it's so far over my head, I don't even understand anything he's saying.
Who wrote it?
I don't know, it's on the cover.
You are doomed.
What?
You are doomed.
Read it faster.
You're dumb.
Ho, ho, ho. Okay, so it's Christmas Eve, and we're in the shop working, as always. And guess where we'll be tomorrow morning? As always. Somebody just shoot me. All right, so here's what we got. Something very unusual. This is a 308 Winchester. I built this thing approximately 13 years ago, and I want you to remember the 13 years because we're gonna tie some other stuff into this. But I built this for a fella. The fella got old. The fella decided he was going to sell a bunch of his stuff, sold a bunch of his stuff, and another guy that we know who has two sons, his older son, saw this, and he's like, oh, Q.M.M. They know what it is. He grabbed it. And somehow or other, then his brother got it. And it shoots, I'll show you here in a second. I'll show you targets. It shoots awesome. This gun always shot awesome. And he has no use for a 308, really. He took it and stood it in a corner, unloaded, just like this. Stood it in a corner, unloaded. And then, guess what? He got married. He had kids. Time goes by, and little kid knocked it over out of the corner. And it landed perfectly on the bolt handle. And uh-oh, guess what happened? Here's the bolt handle. So for you guys who don't know, Remington 700, that's a Remington 700 Action that I blueprinted all those years ago. Oh wait, first, before I show you that, I'll show you how it shot. Okay, this is when it was new, all those years ago. That's factory ammo. 5 shots, and literally that's shots number 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 out of the gun. And here's how it shot at 300 yards. Again, that's 300 yards, .61. So that's the kind of shooter it is. It has a Bartlein barrel on it. So anyways, it fell over and it landed just perfectly on this bolt handle, and the bolt handle snapped off of the bolt. Here's the bolt, here's the bolt handle. Now again, as I was saying, for you guys who don't know, Remington 700 bolt handles are silver soldered onto the body, right? The handle, it's a separate piece, soldered onto the body. And I mean, it works. You think about it, there's millions of Remington 700s out there. And how many handles come off? Well, the answer is some. So typically the way that happens is somebody shoots an overpressure cartridge and they're trying to get the bolt handle open and it won't come, and so they get a piece of 2x4 or the heel of a cowboy boot or something and they're beating on it and the handle snaps off. Or the opposite of that, they've got cartridges that haven't been resized properly and they're trying to cram it into the chamber and the handle snaps off. And so, I mean, among knowledgeable shooters, this is a known weakness, all right? So, how do you deal with that? Well, there's really, I guess you could say there's 3 ways. So, if you're going to use, say you're going to build a custom rifle on a Remington 700, if you're going to use the bolt that came with the receiver, which a lot of times you can't. I'm not going to go into all that. But a lot of times the bolt does not fit the raceways. In other words, the bolt, there's too much slop in there. There can be anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think I've even seen 11 or 12,000 slop between the outside diameter of this bolt and the inside diameter of those receivers. They can vary wildly. Well, if you're going to use this bolt that came with it, there's really I guess there's 3 ways to address that. You can get this handle, the handle that comes on it, TIG welded. In other words, you could leave it in the exact spot, get the handle TIG welded onto there, and you'd be ready to go. And we'll go into that in a second, because once it's TIG welded on, it's not going to come off. Okay, so, or if you're not going to use the bolt that came with this, you can buy replacement bolt bodies. That's what this is. And you notice I have the diameters written on them, right? Because you can buy them. This is PTG, Pacific Tool and Gauge. You can buy long action, short action, different diameters. And in fact, you could ask whatever you want. So you can measure your raceways, and you could get a 701, a 702, a 703, a 704. You can also ream your raceways to a known uniform diameter, front and rear, because sometimes they are not the same. The front and rear will differ, and say you took it up to 705. Okay, you actually knocked out that amount of steel. Again, I have the equipment. I'm not going to show that right now. But you could take it up to 0.705, and then you could order a 0.707, 708 bolt, custom made, to fit that receiver then. The problem is these ones have no handles. So what do you do about that? Well, there's lots of different companies that make replacement handles, right? So you get a replacement handle, and then, again, the best way to do it is get the handle TIG welded onto the bolt body. All right, those are two options. The other way, and it's definitely more expensive, is you can go to PTG and you can get a one-piece bolt. In other words, just like a bolt that you get from bat machine. The handle, and the body are all one piece, machined out of one piece of steel. Well, obviously that's way more expensive, because rather than just starting with a piece of round stock, you got to start with a piece of metal that's this big, right? Because you got to cut all that out to end up with a one-piece bolt handle. Now that is by far and away the best way to go if you're gonna use a Remington 700 action and you're going to blueprint that action. Get the entire replacement bolt first. That way you get everything to fit, and then that way when you chamber the gun, you are chambering to that bolt, which that brings up a whole nother subject. But I guess I want to talk about the TIG welding first. I want to show you this, and Vicky's going to put these actual photos, in the video, so you'll be able to see it better than this. But this guy right here, Dan Armstrong, we've used him for years. Back when we used to do a lot of Remington 700s to TIG weld our handles, he's like the Michelangelo of TIG welding, and I am not joking. His TIG welding is so awesome that you'd think, I don't know what, somebody superhuman did it. I mean, it's like a machine did it. The welds are perfect. And you got to realize when you're doing that, when you're putting a handle on a bolt body, right? You can't just put it on any old place, you understand? It can't just be here, here, here. It has to be timed for your cocking piece and for your notch right there, for the trigger. The whole thing has to be timed properly, right? So you got to put this on there in the right position, and he's very good at doing that. And then, of course, you got to make sure it's flush. You got to grind everything back off. The point is, he's really good. She'll put that photo in. All right, so that's that. Now, we're going to have to jump around here a lot. So let's just talk about bolts. You see how many bolts I got here? This isn't probably even half of the Remington 700 bolts that I have had here. Some fella came here once about, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and he's like, you got any 700 bolts? And I pulled the whole drawer out, and I'm like, yeah, I got that many. And he's just like, I'll take that one, that one, that one, that one. And I said to the guy, what are you going to do with all those? And he's like, I don't know. I'm going to try them in my guns, mix them and match them. You got to think here for a second. All of these bolts, even if you have 10 Remington 700 long action bolts, they do not measure all the same. And what I mean is from the face of the bolt to the front of the lug, to the back of the lug, from the face of the bolt from the nose of the bolt into the actual face of the bolt, they're not uniform. I mean, if you can get ones that were within 2 or 3 thou of each other, that would be doing good. Sometimes they vary wildly. So, say you had overpressure cartridges and the primers leaked and you ate the face out of your bolt. And then you know somebody like me and you're like, hey, look, this guy's got all these replacement bolts. I'll just go over there and get a replacement bolt. Okay, you got to understand there's really also 3 options for that. It may be way too big a headspace, way too little of headspace, or it could be exactly perfect. But it would be pretty much all luck. The only way that you'd be able to do that is if you had the original headspace gauge that the gun was built off of with the original bolt, and you could see exactly how much clearance you have using shims. You could see how much clearance do I have from the face of the bolt to the gauge. So you had the go gauge plus 2, all right? Then you could take that same headspace gauge, those same shims, and you could go through an entire pile of bolts and sit there and try to find one that's the same or varied either direction, in other words, longer or shorter by like maybe 1 thou. But that's about it. I wouldn't do it. And I told that guy that. I'm like, I wouldn't be switching bolts willy-nilly all around just saying, oh, this looks nice or this works better. I wouldn't be doing that. Not a good idea. Okay, so back to the story. So the gun's standing in the corner, empty. Nothing in the chamber. Gun falls over, bolt handle pops off. Uh-oh, here we go. You got this bolt handle popped off. Well, the bolt was in the fired position. In other words, when it was in the gun, he had let the firing pin down. In other words, firing pin forward in the fired position. Well, now the handle came off. And the bolt is in there in battery. In other words, the bolt goes in like this, with the lugs at 3 and 9. But when you get it in there, the lugs turn to 12 and 6. And the firing pin is forward. So how are you going to get that back out of there? And he brought it to me, and when I first looked at it, I'm like, oh, I'm not exactly sure how we're going to get this out of here, because I never dealt with that before. And so my initial thought was, we'll pull the metalwork out, and I'll drive the pins out of the trigger, and then I could reach underneath, get hold of the cocking piece. Maybe I could pull it back, put it in the cocked position, and then I could get the bolt out, right? Because it would go back this way. Well, guess what? Here, I can show you in this picture a little bit. So she'll put these pictures up so you can see them. And really, this is the wrong side. But there it is with the handle off. And like I said, it's in the fired position. Well, on a jewel trigger that's a Remington 700, there's 2 issues. First of all, when it's in the fired position, a jewel trigger, you cannot take the safety lever and bring it back into the safe position. It's forward in the fired position. Well, guess what? The lever covers the front pin. And the way a bolt release works on a Remington 700, the actual bolt stop release covers the front pin. So you have to be able to get the rear pin out to be able to get the front pin out. See, my issue was I couldn't get any of the pins out. So I had the metal work out, and I couldn't figure out how to get it out of there. How am I going to pull that back into the cocked position? By the way, she'll put all these up. So I'm just showing you this. Here's what the handle looked like up close. You can see that. Again, she'll put the good photo up. All right, so here's what I had. I thought about it, and I thought about it, and so this is what I did. I'm figuring, crap, and I really didn't want to do this, so I had to take the barrel off. So again, she'll put that photo up. So I pulled the barrel off, and I looked at it, and I'm like, that's pretty nice machine work. Wonder who did that. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I did that like forever ago. So I took the barrel off, and then what you get is, make sure you put these in order, Vicki, you get this. Now you can look down inside the receiver. So there's the firing pin, there's the plunger, this is the nose of the bolt, and there are the lugs, see, in battery. So you got to get them to turn so that they can come back out the raceway. Well, I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? You know, I couldn't figure out what, and so sometimes when I just start walking around the shop, and I'm like, I stick screwdrivers down in there, no, that won't work. You know what I mean? I tried to get a wrench in there, that won't work. I just like to look at every single thing I possibly have, and I stand there and try to fit it to figure out, well, that's not going to work. And then I happen to see a socket laying there, and the socket was, what size is this, Vicki? I think it's 11/16. It might be good for people to know. Yes, 11/16. I saw a socket laying there, and I picked up the socket, and I had the receiver in my hand. It just so happens that the outside diameter of this 11/16 socket drops right inside the face of the receiver, right inside the threads. Okay, well, that's good. So that'll fit in there. And then I'm like, well, how am I I got to get over the lugs on the bolt to be able to turn it. And so here, I'll show you it this way first, and she'll put up a picture. I'm like, okay, this is what I'll do. And so I took the socket right here, took the socket, and I put it in the milling machine. By the way, I got to stop right there and digress on that. If you have the money and you can afford a lathe and a milling machine and this kind of stuff, you cannot believe how handy it is. Because say you need something, and it's like, I really need that. And it's like, well, nobody makes that. Well, guess what? I took this over there, put that in that milling machine. I made this in probably, I don't know, 15 minutes total, set up and everything, okay? And I was worried, how hard are these sockets gonna be, right? But I had a brand new, really nice carbide end mill, very expensive, and I cut those grooves in there, and this was a 6-point socket. Because it was 6-point, I could line it up in the vise so that all I had to do is take passes like that. That was it. And it cut it out perfectly. So, again, she'll show you this stuff up close. Here's a photo of what that looks like up close. Again, just put it up, Vicki. So then, what I did was, I took this, and guess what? Then it goes, look at this. Come and show them this. See if you can show them that. Here, do it over this blue towel. It goes right over there. Look at that. Came perfect. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to work, right? So then I did this. Show them this. Look at that. Again, she'll show you the up-close photos. And so I put the socket on the ratchet, put it down, and put the vise in, put the receiver in the vise, clamped it down, stuck this down in there, and guess what? It came right out. I mean, there's resistance. There's more. You have to lift on a bolt more than what you think, right? But look at that. I mean, that thing came right out of there, and then I could just slide it right out. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, okay. And I'm going to keep that socket, obviously, but for guys out there, if you've ever run into this problem, except for having to take the barrel off, it was a pretty good fix. It really was. So, okay, so I got it out. So now, what is the deal? The deal is we will be sending the actual handle that came off of it, the actual bolt, because it's head space to that. And obviously this gun shoots really good. We will pack this up, and again, we'll send this to Dan Armstrong. He's in Alaska. That's the only negative. You got to ship it the whole way up there, and he's got to do it and ship it the whole way back. So if you have Remington 700 bolt handle bolts that is still connected, there's no reason, and you're worried about that ever coming off, there's no reason you couldn't ship that to him. I would contact him first, ship that to him, and he can TIG weld that. And I want to tell you something now about this. I should have mentioned this earlier. So when we first started doing this, because years ago, obviously, I worked with a lot. All right, I should back up there too. When you're learning, if you start out with bat receivers, or if you start out with Borden receivers, there's a lot of stuff you're going to miss in your self-education. Because all of this junk forces you to learn a whole bunch about what really makes a gun shoot. If you have a bat receiver and you never have to you don't do anything to it. You just take it out of the box. You have a Bartlein barrel and you know how to get a shoulder and a tenon and thread it, and you have any idea how to bed, the gun's going to shoot. It's just going to shoot. It's just going to. But to really get them to hammer, all of this stuff that you learn with here, come back over here, with firing pins, there's a whole lot more to fire control. Fire control to cocking pieces, to shrouds, to springs, to the actual pin itself, how much it weighs, how fast it's traveling, how far it's traveling. There's a ton of stuff to learn. I have a whole nother box. You know, most of these don't have shrouds on, right? Shrouds. Okay, just because a shroud came on your rifle when you bought it from the store does not mean that that's the right shroud. It can definitely be dragging. I mean, there's so many things that can be wrong with the actual cocking piece, with the shroud, with the pin that holds that on. By the way, if you've never tried to drive the pin out of a Remington 700 that goes through the cocking piece, through the firing pin that the shroud goes over, oh my God. Some of them things can be horrible. You'll bend your punches trying to drive that thing out of there. So anyways, there's a ton of stuff that you can learn by messing with all this junk. Mess with the junk first is my advice, and then go to the good stuff after you actually figure out what makes a gun shoot. So what was I going to say there, Vicki? I was saying something else about learning all this stuff. Then, here, I wanted to show them this too. So this gun, when I built it, I think I put a Badger rail on it originally. We used Badger rails, and when the gun came back, it's been in 3 hands, so 3 different people had it. It no longer had a Badger rail on. I don't know what this is. This rail does have a recoil shoulder on it, right there. Show them that. Recoil shoulder is really important, but it's really important that the recoil shoulder is in the right place compared to where the edge of the receiver is and where the holes are. So the way you put one of these on is set it on top of the receiver, push it the whole way forward, tight, because the gun's going to recoil that way. See where the screw holes are. See if they line up, because usually these screw holes on Badgers are slightly oval shaped, like an egg, because that way you can slide the receiver, because you want the recoil shoulder to be doing all the work. The screws should only hold the rail down. That's all they should do, right? Well, somebody changed out probably what I had on there. I can't be sure. I'm almost certain I had a Badger on it. And they put this on it, which again, I don't know what this is or what quality this is, but this is a steel rail, and they had this underneath it. Show them that. Now, I dang well, for sure, didn't do that. When I see that kind of stuff, I run for the hills. Okay? That is chicken, you know what? Chicken crap. When you do this kind of stuff, think about how important your rail is, your rings and stuff are to shoot in small groups. You don't put shims underneath here. Buy the right dang rail that is, you know, I don't know what they were trying to achieve here. Maybe they were trying to achieve like 40 MOA, because the rails we use are 20 MOA, and I don't know why they'd be trying to do that either. The whole thing is it's chicken crap, okay? So I took that off of there immediately, and here's a Badger rail. These are really nice rails. Very high quality, okay? And what I do then is, I already did this, I put it on the gun. So the way it comes, it has 4 6/48s, right? That's the way that it comes out of the thing. And you know what? I guess if it was on like 243, 6 Creedmoor, maybe 6.5 Crapmore, stuff like that, it's probably good enough, right? Probably. But 4 6/48 screws, to me, is not enough. That's just not enough. So what I do is I put 2 840s in it. So there's an 840, there's an 840. And what I do is I put the rail down onto the receiver with the 6/48s, make sure that it's in the proper position. That is, that the recoil shoulder is up against the back of the receiver. Then I put the whole thing in the milling machine and I drill through the rail, the whole way through it, right? One shot. and then I tap the whole way through the rail so that the screw is not just dropped in a hole. It is literally threaded through the rail, through the receiver. And then you go, I can't show you this, but you go on the inside and you should make your screws long enough. In other words, they just barely protrude, and then you take like 5/1000ths off of them. So they should be on the top of the raceway. It should be flush and a minus, just like 5/1000. The idea is that you get many threads in contact holding power as possible, and you'll never get that off. And I realized what I wanted to say before. So we were talking about TIG welding and getting these handles put on. When I first had Dan Armstrong start doing that, how do you know? How do you know how strong that is? So we had a junk bolt and we had a junk handle welded on, and I went over there. I have a pretty big vise, and I put the bolt body in the vise, and I took a pretty big hammer to begin with, started beating on it. It didn't do anything. I went up to about I probably had about a 3-pound hand sledge there. I started beating on that thing. Believe it or not, it tore the steel. It ripped the steel off of the body. The handle was not coming off. It was just going to tear a big hunk right out of it. And I don't know where that is, because I would like to have shown that to you, but we took stuff to gun shows. I can't find everything. So anyways, that's Dan Armstrong. Now, that's pretty much all for this. So now you know how to get a bolt body out of a raceway if the handle snaps off, and you know to get a full, complete bolt handle replacement. Oh, I forgot to mention how much. I just went and looked it up. Just the basic one is over $300 just for the bolt and the handle, which that sounds like a lot, but it's all one piece. That's a lot of machining. They have a really cool one that has like a 3-position wing safety on it, like a gentry safety. It's like $550, which would make, again, if you're using a Remington receiver, that would be very cool. You can get just the bolt bodies. I think it was like $210 just for a body. Then, of course, you got to buy a handle. And then, of course, you have to get someone to weld it on. So I almost don't see why you would even go that route if you were starting from scratch. I'd just get a naked Remington 700 receiver, blueprint it, get the entire piece, the one-piece bolt handle from PTG, get everything fitted into that, and then when you build the gun, headspace off of that new bolt. That's what I'd do if I was using a Remington. But by the time you get that much money into it, and that's what led us to where we're at, by the time you get that much money into it, you might as well just buy a bat. It comes and everything's perfect, and it's better steel. It's not 416, it's 17.4. It's better steel, it's better tolerances, it's got an integral rail, integral lug, it's melanited, it's just better. It's just better. And you don't really save that much. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say about this. Now, not long ago, we were talking about on another video. Oh, okay, so I got to cover that too. So I asked you guys to comment vote on what I'm building that bench gun. And I'd hope to have it chambered by now. I don't. I am part way down the road, but I'm not there yet. But overwhelmingly it was 6GT. I mean, for every vote for something else, which probably the next contender was 6x47 Lapua. For every one of those, there was probably 10 for 6GT. And then some guys, 6-dasher, etc., right down on the list. But 6GT, overwhelmingly, that's what I'm chambering it in. I already decided. So I'm chambering it 6GT. All right, so that's that. Now, I had mentioned in another video that the whole reason that we ever started videos was because I get tons of phone calls, and I thought if I made a video, say I make a video, how to mount a scope. Well, then when I get 4,000 phone calls on how to mount a scope, I could just say, go look at the how to mount a scope video, right? That is not the way it works. We are now almost at 6,000 subscribers. It is really growing. Oh my gosh. I'm getting more phone calls than I ever got before. More and more and more. And I don't mind it. I mean, I like talking to the guys. It's very cool in one day to talk to a guy in Georgia, in Florida, in Texas, in California, in Minnesota, in Wisconsin, and say one guy in Montana, all in one day. I mean, we may all be one country and one people, but holy cow, people live different. You talk to this one guy, well, I'm going down to the beach now to dig clams, and it's like snowing outside, and the guy in Montana is like, I'm going to ride my snow bike, you know what I mean? It's like 30 below zero, and that other guy's like, yeah, I'm hot, it's like 70 degrees down here. I mean, it's so weird in one day to get to talk to all those guys. But inevitably, when we have those conversations, one thing always comes up, and that's hunting in the West, especially from the guys in the East. Or even in Wisconsin, Minnesota, all them states, they'll be like, oh, I want to go on my once or twice in a lifetime elk hunt. And they know we live in Idaho. And right here, remember to put some photos in, Vicki. You know, I've been with Vicki, I've been with other friends, I've been with just people that we took that needed help, because we used to help a lot of people when I was really young and strong, and that's where this is going. So, you know, they'll say to me, how good a shape do I need to be in? And oh my gosh, sometimes I'm just stupid, okay? I just opened myself up to 40,000 comments right there. But here's the deal. I would say to people, they'd say, how good a shape do you need to be in? And I'd say, well, if you can bench press 225, and you can back squat 315, and you can deadlift 405, and you can run a 8-minute mile on a track and tennis shoes, you're pretty good to go. And you know what they heard? Wah, 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 wah. That's all they heard. They didn't hear a freaking thing I said. If you don't train, none of that means anything to you, right? I might as well have said, whatever. They just don't understand, right? So I got to thinking about it, because that conversation has been coming up a lot lately. How good a shape do I need to be in? The answer is, obviously, the very best shape you can possibly be in. And we are talking now, just to be clear, we are talking about public ground, backcountry elk hunting. Okay, we're not talking about riding around a pickup on a private ranch and like, ooh, there's one, and walk 100 yards and shoot it. That's not what we're talking about. Public ground, backcountry, serious, hard hunting. And that really doesn't matter whether it's with a backpack or with a llama or with horses and mules. It's still brutally hard. So the answer is, you better be in as best shape as you can possibly be. Think Bruce Jenner, when there was a Bruce Jenner and he was on the covers of the Wheatie box. Think that. And if you're like, oh yeah, that's the level of shape that you should be in, okay? Now, here's the deal, and that's also why I was talking about this gun. I built that guy for a gun, like I said, I built the gun for a guy 13 years ago. Pretty tough guy. He had a really hard job in life. He was the man who changed the big tires for a big, well-known tire company on tractors, and the trailer trucks and stuff. I mean, I don't know if you've ever done any of that kind of stuff. That is brutal, physical, hard work. And he is a very strong guy, way, way stronger than most people. Way stronger, way stronger. You got to get this in your head. Not quite Arnold 1973 on steroids strong, but he's a strong man. Well, that has been 13 years ago. And guess what? He doesn't train. He doesn't train, and he retired. He doesn't walk. He doesn't lift weights. He still tries to go hunting. But one day, great big 4x8 sheet of plywood goes up, guns for sale. And it's like, whoa, he's selling his guns? Well, guess why? He can't do it. He can't do it anymore. So the physical fitness aspect, even of someone who was in very good shape, if you don't train proactively, if you don't walk, if you don't run, if you don't climb mountains, if you don't lift weights, if you don't eat properly, Your backcountry elk hunting days are probably done when you're 40, 45. You're going to go to 55. You better be in good shape. You're going to go to 63. I want to get this really close right now. 63. So in 2 seconds, Vicky's going to add a piece of video onto this. I figured rather than telling guys a whole bunch of metrics that they don't even know what the heck I'm talking about, weightlifting and stuff, I figured I will just go and show them. And so we went and we did something that's going to be on the end of this video, and you will see. And the deal is, in that video, could I have kept going? Yeah, but I don't want to have a stroke or a heart attack. I mean, it was definitely hard. It's possible that I could have carried Vicky through all of that, but only one step at a time. I cannot take 2 steps up that steep of a flight of stairs with how much did you weigh there? 145 with all your clothes on. I can't do that. But it's a great visual. If you could do that, if you could put 145 pounds on your back, go up and down them flight of stairs 21 times, 2 steps at a time, well, then you're good enough. So she's going to add that in right now, and Merry Christmas, and I think we'll see you probably next year, right? Next year. All right, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye. Okay, so go ahead. You can run up there and show them. Okay, so all right, so there are 3 sets of steps. One, each one of them is a little different. Some of them, the steps are different spaced. Some of them, keep going, some of them are steeper. They're all pretty steep. So there's one. Okay, 2. Okay, now go to the 3rd one. Okay, and here's the 3rd one. So what we do is we start here. We do, today will be 7. 7 on this set, 7 on next set down, 7 on the 3rd set. Should be for a total of 21. All right.
Okay.
Come on down, Hilo. Okay, shut this off a second. All right, so here we are. Here's the steps. Okay, so with as you're dressed, clothes, coat, gloves, all your crap, how much do you weigh?
145.
145. Okay, how much do you weigh, Hilo?
I weigh 57.
57. Fully dressed, right? Okay, all right, here, you hold the camera. All right, Vicky, you ready?
Okay, I am now holding the camera and we are
You
going
ready?
to video this.
Ready.
Here we go.
Got it?
Yep, I got it.
All right, here we go. One.
I decided I'd follow you.
Give Cameron a moment.
Oh my gosh. Be careful.
Ready?
Don't.
Okay, so
Be careful.
this is 2 steps at a time with the little kid. All right, here we go. Okay, 2. Go say 2 in the camera.
This side again? 4. Can't see.
Now you put the proper fingers up, Philo.
5. Six.
Here comes people.
You put the right fingers on.
7.
7. Okay, so that was 7 on staircase number 1. This is staircase number 2. You ready? Come on. Okay, that's 8. 8.
8.
Be happy. Don't step on wet leaves.
You get ready to jump. Won't be able to work. 11.
Staircase number 3. These are very steep.
Okay, number 3. So 14. This is it to finish out. Come on. Let's go.
There's 100 steps.
Come on. I don't have time for that.
20.
This is it, number 21.
You ready, Hilo? Okay. So it's 10, 21.
21.
21.
21.
And I don't know, I'll probably put this on at the first, but I'm 63 and a half right now. And we add one rep to each flight. So next time it'll be 24. Okay, say goodbye.
See
Merry
ya.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas and New
Turn,
Year.
look and say Merry
See
Christmas.
ya.
Vicky.
Merry Christmas.